Hello, hello, hello. Sorry for the very late start today. Well, I mean, let's be honest, it's this show, so late start is almost kind of normal at this point. But, yeah, so... What was that? I swear I just heard a message sound, and I'm not sure where it came from. Anyway, that's always concerning. Anyway, so hello everybody. It is March 8th, 2023. This is the RambleCast. I'm coming to you alone on this one. Corbin is out for reasons. I'm seeing an error about not enough data. Is the stream going okay for you, Austin? Quickly checking to see if there's something I can do about that. Anyway, so let's see. It is, sorry, it is turning out to be a weird day. So anyway, yeah, it's, good on your end? All right. Maybe YouTube dashboard is just very confused. I'm not gonna worry too much about it. We're gonna just hope that all is well. Speaking of all being well, I forgot to set my... Hey, there we go. I got my browser captured now. Anyway, so no Corbin. It is March 8th. We've covered these things. These are words that I have said, and they are words that I said the second time. So anyway, it has been quite the news-ish week. And I say ish because, let's be honest, there's a whole lot of non-news happening. I'm actually just gonna kind of get this one out of the way. I read through the Android 14 Developer Preview 2 notes, and holy crap, I had trouble staying awake during that reading. Not a lot of exciting stuff there. I saw a couple of mildly, like, maybe these will turn into something more significant kinds of notes. In particular, the ones that jumped out at me, let's see, the vendor extensions for Camera X maybe now supported on the Pixel 6 and 7. AI emoji wallpapers are revolutionary. Wait, AI? Are you joking here about them being AI? Because I got the impression that was just emoji wallpapers. Maybe I misread that. Either way, I'm holding to the belief that no. there is no wallpaper technology that I'm going to call revolutionary at this point. Not until the wallpaper itself is somehow actual magic. But we'll see. Anyway, I will give some credit to the Camera X extensions because, in theory, strict distant theory, this could give us maybe, just maybe, it might give us the ability for apps to do a bit more than they could before. We'll see. But I don't think that's not necessarily something I'm gonna bank on. Because strictly speaking, Camera X is kind of a big mishmash of overly complicated things, and it's not really clear how everything is going to end up working. So yeah, I'm not holding out a ton of hope on that making a difference. The other thing that, oh man, see, the fact that this is the only other thing that really jumped out at me is really bleak. But I spotted the thing about under accessibility, there's a new flash notifications feature that lets the flash for the camera like blink when you receive notifications or when alarms sound. I mean, that's at least a useful feature. A whole lot of what was announced, or it was surfaced, let's say. Yeah, that wasn't, a lot of it's not that useful to most people. Or it's like behind the scenes stuff that no one will directly interact with. So, I know there are news articles circulating about what's new in Developer Preview 2. I'm gonna be kind of coldly honest and just say it's mostly stuff we already knew was happening, and news sites have to news. That's the cold, really harsh reality of it. Is news sites have to news, so they're covering things that aren't necessarily that relevant, or rather, they're covering things that aren't new news. But hey, it is what it is. This article that was posted, okay, you posted from New York Times. I'll just pull that up. So, Google calls in help from Larry Page and Sergey Brin for AI fight. I'm assuming that this has more details, but I remember this was something that they said like a month ago, isn't it? I believe that was about a month ago. Oh, yeah, okay, this is not a new article. Got it. What is... Okay, now I have to figure out why the screenshot. Oh, hold on, I can't actually make that out in the tiny little Discord page. So on the consumer side, one such AI image and video project from Google is a pixel wallpaper maker. Oh, jeez. That is so lame. Not sure what to make of that, but okay. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Anyway, yeah, let's see. Let's hope it's not this emojis wallpaper. I guess, okay, I'm going to say this. I can kind of see that making sense. It's dumb, but it could be at least a novel, mildly interesting thing. Imagine, oh god, this is such a cringy thought, but imagine an AI that looks at either the things you are reading or the things that you're typing, and it generates a wallpaper based on that. So presumably for implementation reasons, they can't really change the colors, but what they could probably do is let you kind of pick a color, or maybe it would come up with daily colors. I don't know, whatever. It would have to signal wallpaper changes, which would cause some weird system behavior. But if they could still draw a background using various emoji, that would actually kind of fit. And those emoji could be kind of based on presumably the mood. Okay, so what I'm kind of describing is, imagine a mood ring for your phone. And everyone has either a peach or an eggplant wallpaper. Truth. But yeah, what I'm kind of predicting here is, or at least the thing I could see them doing, is effectively a mood ring wallpaper, except in emoji form. Instead of showing you colors, like, you know, you're angry, you're sad, you're happy, whatever, it would show you emoji of like smiley faces and, I don't know, maybe eggplants and peaches. It might show you, I don't know, a big ass angry face and flames, fire. I don't know. We could make up whatever, but yeah, it could be that. I could see it being kind of a cool idea. It would be creepy though. Show me somebody that is sitting out there going, "Oh yeah, the thing I absolutely can't wait to have is an AI reading everything I do and then creating a wallpaper for me." That is a terrible idea, but it's also kind of a cool idea that I guarantee somebody out there, if they haven't thought of it already, I just thought of it. So, you know, make it so people can get angry. That is the message I'm sending. Make things so people can get angry about them. Motto of the Republican Party. Anyway, so I'm hoping that's not where this goes, but I could see it becoming a thing. Also, how the hell did you pull up that screenshot? Oh no, what am I saying? Never mind. Forget I even started asking that. Wow, that is some very odd picture choices for these two. I mean, very odd choices, because Saria has not looked like that in a long time. But hey, and also, really, the, like, weird red bow tie that is not on quite right. Odd choice. Anyway, so... oh, wait, did I include that? I don't think I did. Oh, where was that news about Sundar? He said something recently, and it was a whole lot of what the hell. Let's see. Yeah, okay, I found it. I didn't actually read this yet, but this deserves a distinct call out for a level of what the fuckery. But okay, I'll get to that momentarily. Anyway, so yeah, the developer preview 2 changes, look, it's a developer preview 2. This is a whole lot of stuff that's usually kind of the fixes that came to stuff after developer preview 1. A lot of stuff hasn't been announced yet because it hasn't really been added yet. And, you know, to restate the incredibly obvious that everybody should already kind of have come to terms with, Android updates aren't the big, huge updates that they used to be. There's a whole lot more that is just sort of under the covers, really quiet, simple, small changes. And that's what that's what OS updates generally should be when an OS is over 10 years old. So, yeah, we're into that stage of the life of Android where things are boring. So yeah, I'm not gonna pull up much more of that unless someone has something really particular that they want to call out. Like if there's something I missed, go for it. Sent the screenshot because wasn't sure if I could access the New York Times. Evidently I could with this one at least. Let's see. So, the other thing that I had just remembered, and I admit I have not read through this article. I don't care that much to read through it because I feel like the headline really hits it right there. So fundamentally. And if anybody wants the link, it is going into chat right now. So Google boss Sundar Pichai says staff are bemoaning office ghost towns. It's just not a nice experience. You know what else is famously not a nice experience? COVID, RSV, smelly coworkers. Like there are a lot of not nice experiences when you have a lot of people in an office. So, just gonna put that out there. But, oh, for real? Is this gonna be a... if I refresh this, is it gonna load? No. Huh. Okay, so, screw Fortune, we're just gonna go somewhere else. Okay, I guess Shack News. Why the hell not? Anyway, so thank you, Shack News, for not being a cringy, lame site. So we're in fact going to even fix the chat on this one. Remove the old message, new link in place. Hooray! So yeah, Sundar is also defending desk sharing as a way to be efficient and save money. Because, Google is nothing more than a crappy call center where people have to share desks. That is the dumbest thing I think I've heard in ages. So I get the goal of this. The idea here is everyone's supposed to come in and use a smaller overall amount of space. That way more people are packed together and they can see each other. They can work closely, so to speak. Now, knowing enough about Google to know that there are several people who also have offices, I'm inclined to ask, is office sharing becoming a thing? I bet it's not. They're doing this just to the regular workforce. They're not doing this to anyone who's in management. They're not doing this to the project leads. They're doing this just to the regular developers. And it is a dumb for show kind of thing. Let's see, awesome. This along with the whole desk sharing issue, yeah, which I happened to already move on to. Which honestly, if you share a desk, at least you still get to work from home 2-3 times a week. But we want to work from home, and also we don't want to share desks is kind of counterintuitive. How's that counterintuitive? I mean, don't get me wrong. I agree that there is a argument to be made for let's not have an office sitting empty for 5 days a week. I'm counting weekends, and then active for like 2 to 3. Yes, there is something to be said for that is a massive waste of space and power usage and everything else. Completely granting that. However, I would also counter argue that have you ever been in a desk sharing situation? I mean, seriously, it is awful. it is really, really an unpleasant experience to do desk sharing. Um, so much so that I could see a very credible argument to be made for people at Google are probably going to start either A, making a point of doing like half days with some frequency. Yes, but with labs. Labs are different. Not entirely different, but different. At least I'm imagining they are. With labs, you have some obligation of being at least... What is the word I want to use? I know. Hygienically clean. Now, with a lab, you can obviously be sort of crappy in the sense of like putting things away in the wrong place, or not cleaning up very well after things that you've worked on, or like just leaving things in not a great state. Yes, that is a thing with labs. When we're talking about desks, oh boy. Oh boy. Look, I worked at Dell for a little while, and fortunately I was one of the people who didn't have to do desk sharing. Because one, I worked enough hours that it mostly wasn't a problem. Two, when I was there, it's weird because when I was there, I was basically hired in kind of a like early stage employee. So in a weird sense, I basically had seniority, even when I first started. It's odd, but that's how it worked. But yeah, I saw other people having to do it. It was bad. There were people who were going out of their way to sort of sabotage their desks. And by that I mean doing any level of gross, disgusting things that they could, or making their desk a mess, or leaving stuff piled on there so that other people would come along and think someone was already at that desk. There would be so many different tactics people use to try to sort of claim their space. It was sort of like watching dogs mark their dogs, cats, other animals mark their territory. Like, everything short of literally peeing on it. It was all open territory. And I'll tell you, I have a funny feeling Googlers are going to do this same stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if this reaches the point of like somebody might start fiddling with the network ports so that you can't, like, when you sit down and try to use this desk, like, the network port won't work. And people will keep doing this stuff. Maybe they'll sabotage the chair in some way, or make it just as unpleasant as possible for other people to use a specific desk. At which point, yeah, I'm just saying this is coming. This is bound to happen. And in the process, like, what is really changing? Is Google like releasing a bunch of its offices? I assume they probably released a few. And by release, I mean decided not to use them anymore and have either sold or stopped renting, leasing, whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if some of that has happened. Obviously not their main buildings, the ones that have big Google signs plastered on them, but Google does have employees in other more temporary, transient sort of buildings. I would assume they've let go of a few of those and moved everybody into the main buildings. But that said, they also cut their workforce by a pretty substantial amount. Are you telling me that they don't... could they not? If they still own these buildings, they're still running these buildings, and I assume they still are powering and keeping things happening in these buildings. Can they not just get a bunch of people on the same schedules for particular buildings? So, for example, Building 7, I don't remember which ones are which, but let's say Building 7. Have that be kind of the Monday, Tuesday building. Maybe Wednesday. Everyone who needs to come in, they come in on the same day, and work the same day. I still think this is a bad idea in terms of commuting diseases, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, have people come in and work on similar schedules. That way, the building won't feel like a ghost town. But other buildings where people aren't scheduled for those days, shocker, they will feel like ghost towns because they are supposed to. It's to me, this feels like a really easy, simple solution, and one that sane people would have come to long ago. Which reminds me actually of an experience I had at Google I/O a few years ago. And every time I tell this story, I feel like a bit of a dick, but it also is funny because of an implication that I can't help but slap together with this. Many years ago, well, several years ago, I was waiting in line for a code lab. This particular code lab, I had been informed, was it was for Android things, and the basic idea was you go in, you complete their code lab in person, and they give you a kit for doing Android things. All right, neat idea. I kind of wanted to toy with this a little bit, and I thought, yeah, you know, I make garbage money, so I'm not gonna buy this myself, but I don't mind spending, you know, I was thinking I was hoping it'd be like half an hour, 45 minutes, and there wasn't a good session going at the time, so it made sense. I kind of thought, yeah, sure, I'll go do this thing. Anyway, I get there, huge long line. That kind of sucked. But the line looked, at least at the time, like it was moving pretty fast, and they had a huge space open with tons of computers. So it's like, okay, people get into this thing, and people are moving through pretty quickly, like just by sheer volume of people who can get in and out. So I get in line. Here's where things get dumb. The line was oriented such that a ton of people had to stand in the sun for an extended period of time. And Google I/O, as you may have heard, is famous for having problems with sunburns. Lots and lots of sunburns. Like, it's bad. It's real bad. Anyway, this line was oriented such that everyone in the a bunch of people would have to stand in the sun, the afternoon sun, for probably a good half hour. And it was set up to snake along in this spot. It was technically an okay use of space. I get why they chose to do it the way that they did, but they were dumb. Anyway, as I'm walking along, I'm getting closer and closer to, like, the back of the line was in shade. I'm getting closer and closer to where the sun starts. And at a certain point, like, the people in front of me keep moving naturally. And at a certain point, I was kind of near the edge. I turn around to the entire group of people behind me, which at this point is actually grown to be pretty large. I turn around and say to them, I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to stand in the sun. How about we literally just stand here? That's it. No big magical solution. Let's just stand here in the shade. And we'll all collectively agree. If we see somebody try to hop in line, we'll stop them. And, you know, if people are going to be dicks, then we'll deal with it that way. But you have that kit? Nice. I admit, I never actually did anything with it. I wanted to, I just never had time. Anyway, so we're standing in line, and after I pitch this idea, I just see a whole bunch of people start smiling, and it's like, yeah, and several of them even said, why did no one think of this sooner? And I turn around and I look at the crowd of people who are in front of me, all standing in the sun, and daggers. I mean, daggers in their eyes. Everyone there is pissed at me. There was this, I think it was a girl, and that's not That's just me not remembering if it was a girl or a guy. I'm not, there's no like confusion about what it was. But I think it was a girl who said something about, no, you should have to stand in the sun just like we do, or something like that. And it's like, I don't see why. Oh man, she was furious. Anyway, so at a certain point, all of those people had filtered up, and there were a few people, I don't know, not very many, but there were a few people who came in and kind of tried to jump in line, but it was all roped off, so it's not like they didn't have to sort of cheat. So they knew that they were trying to cut in line. You still have an unopened one? Yeah, same. Anyway, so, and I will say, setting aside the Android Things platform, supposedly some of those components are still actually really useful. So, even if you can't use the Android Things portion of it, some of those components would still be usable in other projects. You just have to hook them to, I guess, like an Arduino or Raspberry Pi or something. Anyway, now, eventually one of the IO, like, not organizers, but one of the like event helpers or whatever came along, discovered what had happened, and more importantly what I had done, and I was like, oh crap, yeah, you guys don't want to stand in the sun. Oh my god, that makes sense. So they rejiggered the line so that it stayed mostly in shade. Like, there were a few minutes that people would have to stand in the sun, but it wasn't bad enough that it should be a burn issue. Anyway, one of the things that stood out was something one of the developers said, and I was already kind of thinking this myself, but this is an event put on by people whose job it is to solve problems, to be good at anticipating issues, to figure things out. Quite literally, the job of software engineers is to figure things out and solve problems. Like, this is literally the definition of what we do. And the random dumb journalist, who, yes, is also a software engineer, but whatever. The random, like, low man on the totem pole is the one who's sitting there like, yeah, no, this is dumb. I'm gonna do it better. And none of them thought of this. By the way, this was after two full days of them running a line the way that they did. This was the third day, or wait, no, maybe this was second day, whatever. I'm pretty sure it was third day. Anyway, yeah, this was however long it had been going, this was the last day of I.O. And this was in the afternoon, so like, this was a problem that got solved at the kind of last minute and didn't do much good, but still, this is something they should not have had to have a problem with, but they did. And I can't help but look at it and think, you know, you should be able, like, as a software engineer, you shouldn't just be looking at algorithmic problems and trying to solve those. At times, you also have to stop and say, wait a second, maybe should we be fixing other problems too? And which leads me back to the desk sharing thing. All they have to do is, a company that is notorious for having tons of algorithmic solutions to things. You're telling me that they can't work out an arrangement saying, oh, all the people who are supposed to work Monday and Tuesday, let's have them all come into the same offices. And likewise for the people who are supposed to work Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or whatever. They don't need desk sharing. They have the space. They just have to use it differently. Austin, software engineers generally aren't good at people problems, in my experience. Usually that's a social problem that you're talking about. Interfacing, or Because the problem I'm describing is an algorithmic issue. It's not even a people problem, it's algorithms. The algorithm being, when do people work and where do they work? That's it. All you have to do is algorithmically solve, basically algorithmically solve for X. Like, how do we get a bunch of people into the same building? Oh, we'll just find the days that they work and make sure that they line up with the building. That's it. This isn't a people problem. It's literally a numbers problem. And so I feel like look, I'm just saying, I don't get paid a lot, and I'm coming up with a solution that is a hell of a lot better than theirs. That is not a thing that should be happening this easily, this quickly, or whatever. So, yes, Big G, I'm just suggesting, fix your stuff, boys. Sundar, are you telling me that Sundar, the guy who's running this company, couldn't have come up with this? Look, as little faith as I have in Elon Musk to do anything right, I think even he could have come up with this. That's a lie. I don't think he would have come up with this. He's a moron. Anyway, yeah, just saying. This has to be solvable. Like, it's solvable in really weird, easy ways. It's Google in 2023. They'll build an AI to figure it out, and just like Bard, the AI will be faulty and give the wrong logic and advice. Look, that's not me saying it. It is the AI inside of me that is using commentary from all over the internet to with a language learning model, or learning language model, whatever, to provide an automated response. And that automated response thinks Google is dumb. Let's see. Oh, good. Okay, I just saw a message that is good news-ish. But whatever. That's for another time. Okay, good. I will close that for now. Anyway, and yes, lots of software engineers lack human empathy. Last I heard, this was something Google is also kind of known for. And if you've ever tried to deal with Google's customer service, you know it to be true. To be fair, also, customer service agents are notorious for lacking human empathy. As my recent experience with AT&T and actually Geico as well have really confirmed. Dear God. All that being said, I gotta say one other side note. So Sundar says that Google employees are complaining that it's like a ghost town. Now, first off, I don't deny I'm sure there are plenty of employees who do actually say that, think that, and believe that. I'm not disputing this for a second. There are plenty of people who like actually working in a busy office. I would even say that at times I have been one of those. But oh my God, you know what I love more? Working in an office with no one else there. I think back to some of the contract jobs I've had, or even my first developer job, my very first programming job. When I moved out to Las Vegas for it, and I worked, I was the poor guy who didn't even get a real desk. We were trapped in this terrible little box with horrible air circulation. It got way too hot in there even when the AC was running. it was kind of an awful place to work, strictly speaking, at least by any modern standards. The company didn't treat its developers particularly well, which honestly kind of backfired on them because, frankly, the developers did not treat the rest of the company that well. At least some of them didn't. There was a lot of departments would request things and they would just kind of go on a list to never be touched. Anyway, the thing is, at a certain point, I realized how great it was working when no one else worked. So a lot of times I would either try to come in, a lot of times I came in earlier than everybody, which was easy because honestly, everyone at this place really, really enjoyed coming in late. This, by the way, was a classic Vegas thing. A lot of companies in Vegas recognized that the commute times were terrible because Vegas was not really designed for the size of population it would eventually get. So a lot of companies kind of came to terms with this and started saying, all right, hey, you know what? We don't need everyone to come in at these certain times, so everyone's welcome to come in like an hour later. Or certain people could come in an hour later. And it was great for those people. Because by the time they're hitting the road, most other people are already at work. That was awesome. And this place was very flexible about start times. Basically, as long as you didn't have meetings scheduled, you could come in at almost any time of the day, and they kind of didn't care that much. You might get some side eye if you were too late, but it wasn't too bad. Anyway, there were a lot of times that I either came in a bit earlier than everybody, or I would stay later and just kind of like maybe not come in as early the next day or whatever. I made a good practice of this, and holy crap, it was so nice just not having to work with anybody else in that room. It's like going to a movie theater alone. If you're in a completely empty movie theater, it is awesome. You don't have any sounds from anybody else. No one else is crunching away at popcorn, rattling bags, or fiddling with a straw in their cup. There's no crying babies, unless you are the crying baby. There's no other annoyances. There's no, well, I was going to say there's no body odor, but let's be honest. Every theater has just kind of some residual funk going. Though it's probably not the body odor. That's probably just like rotting sugar on the floor. Anyway, the thing is, having this space to yourself is kind of great. I bet for as many developers that are complaining about it being a ghost town, I bet there are 5 times as many who are like, oh my god, I love this. I don't have to wear headphones when I work because it's quiet in here. I don't have to like trip over someone else having their bags sticking halfway out of their cubicles, or I don't have somebody else fiddling with something, or having like a quick meeting like at their desk. And by meeting, I mean like 2 or 3 people come over and they just start talking about a thing, maybe work related, maybe not, and it has nothing to do with you, but you can hear every word they say. These are annoyances that come with working in a busy office. But guess what? A ghost town? Oh, none of it. None of that. Or very little. And it's great. It is so good. I'm telling you, I kind of think Sundar is... He's projecting here. He wants a lot of people to think it's a ghost town. And that's supposed to be a bad thing. I'm betting it's not. So, maybe I'm wrong. But just speaking from experience, I don't think I am. That being said, I think even the people who do prefer working in a mostly dead office, I imagine there are times that even they're like, you know what? one day a week having a crowd in here might be kind of neat, just to feel the energy. But I bet most of the time they'd rather just have it dead. And especially if this whole desk sharing thing is supposed to be a thing, because that is still the dumbest crap I've heard. Nobody wants desk share. No one. Fact. The only person who wants to desk share is the person who wants to steal stuff from the person who left something by accident. Anyway, so continuing on to other Google news. Let's just talk about the dumb picture. The dumb picture. For those who don't know, the Pixel Fold is a product that somebody might decide to launch someday. We've heard about it. We've heard rumors. Fact is, we've even seen renderings. It's impossible, but yeah, to be fair, this is not a real, like, Google-made render, but it is likely, based on what we have seen, the various things that are known, it is likely that this is roughly what the Pixel Fold on the outside is going to look like, and I think I think they're even inside renders. Hey Carson, how's it going, man? But now some person has decided to do an over-the-shoulder pop, looking at someone carrying a presumed Pixel Fold on. This is what, a train, a subway, I don't know, maybe a bus. I didn't check, but I'm assuming it's a subway. Anyway, I'm just gonna say it. Who cares? Resounding level of who cares. It doesn't matter. We've seen and know enough about this device already. I personally don't think that it is that exciting to see this at all. And in general, I would say I feel like we should be kind of past this, because folding phones are not particularly revolutionary. Samsung has made several of them. Other companies have now made at least a few of them. And yes, okay, Google and OnePlus are planning on making their first. Quiet search results. Yeah, mic is off, bastard. So I knew eventually that was going to trigger. It had to. So yeah, I'm just not. I don't know if it's because I'm jaded after having seen so many caught in the wild photos, but this stuff doesn't excite me much anymore. And again, part of it I'm sure is because we already know so much about this device. Seeing one supposedly in the wild doesn't really spark a whole lot of new interest. This is literally like this is sort of like if what would be a good example? Okay, it'd be sort of like if you've got a kid and that kid has been like writing book reports for the last 2 years, and then all of a sudden, for the first time ever, the kid also decides to write something on a post-it note. Yo, the post-it note's less cool. Sorry, but we've got bigger, we've got better, we've got more. A random photo of someone holding it, and blurry, poorly shot photo, which, okay, what do you expect here? But yeah, a poor photo, nobody cares, or no one should care. The only thing interesting about this, I guess, is that they have prototypes that people are carrying around, but that doesn't even necessarily speak to much, because Google has been known to make prototypes of devices that aren't even going to go out into the, as products. So it's entirely possible this may not even be a new prototype. Anyway, the hype for this has apparently been real. I'm acknowledging it existed, and also here to say, the sites that are posting this, do better. Just do better. Moving on to, let's see, what do we want to hit? Let's go with, well, this is just right here. Actually, I don't know if I have much to say on this. So, AI-generated fiction is flooding literary magazines, but not fooling anyone. Yeah, this is the thing. Obviously, like, we've heard about this happening in Stack Overflow. We've heard about it happening in an assortment of other places. Basically, people are using AI to just generate stories of various forms and posting them. The big key issue, as anyone could tell you, is one, it is effectively just asking an AI to plagiarize things for you. It doesn't actually produce anything truly original. It's just mocking up something based on other people's work in the first place. But in general, I'm approaching the point where I want to just ask the question, can we just not? As a society, can we just maybe agree AI isn't there yet to where it's going to do this well or responsibly? And if it's not going to do it well or responsibly, maybe you don't need to, you just don't need to do this. You don't need to put garbage out and hope no one notices. That's not good. It doesn't work well. And plus, as this title says quite succinctly, it's not fooling anyone. I mean, so many people can read AI's written stuff and immediately recognize, oh yeah, it's kind of got this weird, it's got this weird speech pattern. At least ChatGPT does. I would argue so does Bing, whatever their thing is called. These have very weird speech patterns. They're very noticeable. They stand out. And it really isn't hard to spot them. There's also just kind of a tendency for them to say weird things. Things that normal people would not say. And again, it's not hard to pick that stuff out. Now, what would obviously work and has worked is for people to basically generate large things and then go back through and re-edit them into sort of more human language. Whether or not that's actually a good idea, you know, you can debate that all day long. But yeah, there is something to this. And hello to David. How's it going, man? So yeah, I don't know. I didn't have much about this. I kind of put this in originally thinking Corbin and I would probably bat it around for a little bit and just talk trash. But yeah, by itself, I don't really have too much to say here. My question, though, for as much as I think that it's terrible and stupid that this is happening, I also question how long before we can't detect it. How long before it gets good? And at which point, how bad is that going to be? I don't know. Anyway, so let's see. Let's get into legal stuff. A little bit of legal holy crappery is due to take place. So, the Senate is pushing a bipartisan bill that would give the Department of Commerce and to an extent the White House some extra power to basically say, hey, we don't want to allow any foreign countries, or, well, okay, I'm saying this wrong, but they want to give them the ability to, on a case-by-case basis, decide that foreign countries should not be allowed access to data about Americans. In this particular example, they're obviously writing this with TikTok in mind, kind of saying, hey, they're sort of stealing a lot of our information and using it as a propaganda tool. or rather they could use it as a propaganda tool. Whether or not it really has been is debatable. There's so one of the notable points here is it is a bipartisan bill. As it turns out, it seems to be one of the few things that we actually can agree on as a universal thing. Which, hey, at least for once, people doing terrible things, the other side can agree. Maybe that shouldn't be allowed universally. But you know, it's also the classic, it's okay when we do terrible things, but when someone else does terrible things, holy crap, bad times. Anyway, so I did find a couple of things fairly funny. The Republican who co-authored the bill did say it's safe to assume that if the Chinese Communist Party is willing to lie about its spy balloon and cover up the origins of the worst pandemic in 100 years, they'll lie about using TikTok to spy on American citizens. Look, Thune is not necessarily the greatest debater in the world, but that was solid. That was a mic drop moment right there. So this is also not the, let's see, I want to make sure I'm not skipping over a different part, but this is not the first bill that has been introduced, or rather the first attempt to try to do something about this. Let's see, there is of course the Cepheus deal that was supposed to be kind of a mitigating solution, though that was going to, if I remember correctly, this is the one where TikTok was basically going to put up a big wall between its Chinese and American operations, and a whole lot of it was supposed to go through Oracle and various other entities to sort of solve issues. That, of course, was a very dumb idea anyway. In my opinion, it should not have ever even been part of the discussion, but hey, it is what it is. Let's see. Okay, so one of the things a TikTok spokesperson, Brooke Oberwetter, said to the Biden administration, which I love this, is, quote, "It does not need additional authority from Congress to address national security concerns about TikTok." This is quite literally a TikTok spokesperson telling the president, you don't need additional authority to deal with us. Because, you know, the spokesperson for a social media company is telling the executive branch how politics work and how systems work. That is a real winning message right there. The moment that you're trying to dictate to the highest authority in the country, yeah, you don't need more power. We're going to tell you how it works. Hold on just a second. I heard a sound and I want to go check on it. Okay, all is well. So with all this said, even when I first saw this, I had one particular concern about it, and it is exactly the thing that is mentioned lower in this article. By the way, I forgot to link this, so it's there in chat in case anybody cares. Let's see. So, the issue here in my opinion, is it might be giving too much power to the government to sort of selectively decide that they don't like a foreign entity. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a bad thing, but I'm also picturing how it can be misused. And that's what worries me. If the day comes that, let's say, if the day comes that some whistleblowers start relying on something outside the country as a means of safely communicating or sharing information, doing something that is objectively for the better interests of our country, it stands out to me that this same bill could give the power to effectively squash some of the things that would keep people safe or allow obviously, like I'm trying to think of various good examples. Now I don't have anything immediately coming to mind, but there's so many ways that this could be misused, either for political gain, for abusing companies that don't play ball or don't sort of pander or cater to the president or the Department of Commerce or whomever. All of these things, and that is the point. This is power that, as we've seen in the previous administration, gets abused a lot, and that's what would worry me. Which kind of brings up David's comment. Not sure why they couldn't just outright give TikTok the boot. They had no issue doing it to Huawei. In the circumstances of Huawei, that was a bit different. Actually, it was very different, because Huawei was making use and relied upon technology from US firms. We basically, as a country, have the ability to say that our technology is not allowed to be exported to various places. In the case of the Huawei ban, basically it was very tied to that. Damn, what word am I looking for? It was very tied to the point that they can't. They weren't allowed to receive new technology from us, and their licenses were revoked. Anyway, whether or not you consider that well-meaning is debatable. And of course, prior to that, the other step that they took is they dictated that government and infrastructure were not allowed to buy from Huawei. So in other words, telecom companies could not use Huawei hardware. That didn't mean that you couldn't, as a regular person, buy a Huawei phone and use it on a cellular network. It just meant that the cell networks themselves couldn't use that hardware for their infrastructure, which seems pretty fair. I mean, it's I'm sure not that fair to Huawei, but it started as not a particularly harsh ban, and then it moved on to becoming a very harsh ban sometime later. With TikTok, this is a company that is very literally just saying, hey, everyone, please come use our thing, and oh, the way you use it gives us data, and so we're just going to harvest that data and use it as we see fit. They're not borrowing or stealing any technology. They're not abusing anything that is licensed or only accessible through contract. Basically, all they're doing is sharing video and scraping whatever's in that video and how people watch those videos to make determinations about different things. The other thing that they're doing, of course, is kind of using it as a not actual propaganda, but kind of a twisted form of propaganda. So one of the things, and I mentioned this before, and I also, again, I disclose, I do not know this with personal experience. I don't know this with certainty to be true, but it has been reported several times that if you look at TikTok in the US versus TikTok in China, the videos that TikTok China tends to show are generally well made. Typically, more often they are educational. They still have trends and fads. They still have things happening in them that are, for fun. But the majority of TikTok China is, just by any objective definition, a higher quality kind of thing. TikTok US, they really encourage the low quality as people describe it, brain rot kind of content. It's a lot of garbage. It's a lot of things that are just meant to be a chuckle in 15 seconds and then move on to your next chuckle. And it's, by most definitions, it's supposed to not be good for the brain. This is being considered a form of information warfare by China. Now, whether or not you want to take it that seriously, that, everyone sees this at different levels. But there is something to be said for, it seems like they're rigging the algorithm to give people junk. And, take that for what it is. But they're not doing that for no purpose. Somebody out there came up with the idea that if you just get people addicted to something and then give them no value, it's sort of like convincing somebody to eat nothing but McDonald's. They're going to become chemically addicted to the very low quality of that food, which is a weird thing to say, but it's the truth. And so they'll feel bad when they aren't getting it, and it will also provide them nothing of value aside from technically giving you calories. So, similar things here. TikTok is basically trying to give people high calorie, low quality social media. No nutritional value despite the high calories. So all told, I get what the US is going for here. I'm not against the direction of this. I'm not comfortable with the implementation. I'm not necessarily predicting it's bad implementation, and obviously without reading the bill through and through and becoming an expert who could also fully understand the bill, which I'm certainly not, and don't expect to be anytime soon. Despite all of that, yeah, I just have to say I don't see much of a path where they can do it much differently. Obviously they could, there are other ways that they can deal with TikTok, but I have a feeling that this is headed down the road to a full ban, which I hate saying it, but that does bring up an interesting political discussion about how much is anyone going to like an administration that bans the fastest growing and, just generally speaking, one of the most popular social networks currently in operation. I feel like a full-scale ban is going to be very, very unpopular come election time. I could be wrong, but it is something that I think people should be a little bit more concerned about than they are. Anyway, so yeah, that is that particular news. Now on the other side of the pond, there's also some good news. Sort of. Most likely. Definitely. You know what? This is actually definitely good news. So the EU is kicking around a new version of the Digital Markets Act that would basically not completely target just Apple, but yeah, it would be designed very heavily around forcing Apple to basically play nice with others. So they've got a few new provisions that are, let's see, they approved the act back in July of 2022, and it's supposed to go into effect May 2nd of this year. Carson. Okay, all right. Before I continue with this, you brought up Greg Abbott banning it on government devices and public university Wi-Fi networks. Austin, jeez. Okay, so Greg Abbott banning it there. This has already been brought up as pretty hilarious because the government devices, okay, fine. It's banned on the app is banned from government devices. It's not banned from devices that go onto government property. It's only banned from government devices. And technically, yes, it is banned from government Wi-Fi, but that I'm kind of highlighting the point that you could still record something on a personal device, upload it over cellular, all while being on government property. Which technically, like, are you really accomplishing anything here? But the university Wi-Fi thing has also been hilarious because tons of people have just gotten around this by using, shockingly, VPNs. College students know a thing called VPNs. Greg Abbott does not know what a VPN is. Actually, I'm not sure he even knows how to turn it off and turn it back on. It being a computer. Look, sorry, I'm about to say the dick thing, but he's old, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. It's not going to do any good to ban it on university Wi-Fi. It just isn't. That is stupid BS. It's not that I'm saying TikTok needs to be around. I'm actually, look, I'm kind of okay with it getting banned. I don't think that's the right answer, but I also don't really have a better answer, and I don't care enough. I'm not a user. It doesn't affect me that much. The only bad side about TikTok going away is it means a whole bunch of people will go flooding back into YouTube and just kind of make a mess there. And it's already a mess, so, what do you expect? So, yeah, Abbott's move is dumb. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't DeSantis also do something like this? I would swear he also did some kind of order to keep TikTok out of something in Florida. I could be wrong. But I thought I remembered hearing that. Either he did it or he wanted to do it. It was something like that. So, anyway, back to the Apple thing. And Austin says I should only read the Apple subreddit comments about this. I dread the thought of what Apple subreddit commenters would have to say on this issue. I cannot fathom it is anything good. In fact, it has to be truly a work of probably pure evil that they are yelling and screaming about. But anyway, so this act is basically all of the things everyone complains about with Apple and the iPhone, Apple and iOS in general. So it takes aim at effectively three things. The first is Apple should have to basically offer alternate app stores, or at least the ability to sideload apps. Something. Effectively, yeah, they need to allow iPhones to support other app stores. Um, and I for one have to say, good. This needed to happen. Look, I don't think that Apple's going to not be the overwhelming winner anyway. Like, it's just plain and simple and obvious. It's going to be the App Store that comes on the phone. I don't think anyone's going to force Apple not to make their own App Store the primary source of apps. But look, eventually they were going to lose the fight against Epic on this. Epic is going to eventually ship Fortnite with its own App Store on iPhones. There was never not going to be that future. Apple lost in essence. I think they won that trial, but in essence, they were always doomed to lose this. And eventually sideloading was going to come in. Eventually other things. Like, they couldn't hold this forever. It's kind of a miracle they've held it as long as they have. So, yeah. This one I think is a given. Apparently the EU is also pushing Apple to allow for third-party browsers, or more specifically, third-party rendering engines. David says, if I can finally run an emulator on Apple products, then I'm one happy camper. Yeah, basically. I mean, that is kind of a very inevitable outcome, because people are already running emulators like a custom built. You have to run this from Xcode, but yeah, people have gotten emulators working on iPhones for years, and without any encumbrances from the App Store, that's just going to take off like crazy. There's so many of them that are going to happen. But much like third-party rendering engines, emulators have of course been blocked on the App Store. But if the EU goes through with this and it flies, then apps will be able to bring their own rendering engines. Presumably there won't be like shared rendering, like, you know, you don't just install Chrome and then get to choose to use Blink as your rendering engine. But hey, you know, you could in theory compile your own rendering engine in, and that's, I would argue, good enough. And that is, of course, if you're another kind of app. If you're a browser, the key point here is you can just have your own rendering engine rather than using Safari's. But hey, you know, this is good news. I remember us talking about this a few weeks ago. There was the rumor that Google was internally preparing a rendering engine for the iPhone, or like a true version of Chrome, not just Chrome with WebKit as a backend. And this is exactly what I said was going to happen. Someone is going to force Apple into doing this, and Google wanted to be ready. That's precisely what I said then. It's still very true now. You can tell Google knew this was coming. Somebody was watching, paying close enough attention, and seeing as this it's called the Digital Markets Act, the DMA. That's funny, actually. The DMA is scheduled to go into effect May 2nd of this year, but it's been around since July 22nd, or July of last year. So somebody knew this was coming because they were paying at least the basic amount of attention. Shockingly, they motivated someone inside of Google was like, yeah, we should be ready for this. And someone else was like, oh yeah, no kidding. Let's make it happen. And so, unsurprisingly, they did that. They're making it happen. And finally, the big one, the one that presumably Apple is the most scared about, is that this may force iMessage to be open or somehow interoperate with other messaging platforms, which in all likelihood really just means, at least in the US, it may force iMessage to work with RCS. It could be used for other purposes. It could exist in other ways. We don't know. How Apple and how the EU handles this could vary. It could be anything from forcing Apple to open up the iMessage protocol, allowing third-party clients access to it. It could involve just making it forcibly compatible with other messaging platforms. So, Apple could be the one to implement this. It could be, in theory, Apple could even just effectively shut down iMessage or make it very transparent and allow other types of communication to just run side by side with iMessage. But key point, the whole point of this is to basically remove an anti-competitive feature that is keeping people with Android phones from communicating with iMessage. Awesome. Love to see how the A15 can run emulators. Well, judging by a few things that I've seen, look, the M1 chips are really, really spectacular. Their performance is so good for the power consumption that they have and everything else. That said, I've seen emulators maybe run a little bit less impressively. Not to say that they're bad. They're certainly not. But I wouldn't go so far as to say, oh my god, they're shockingly fast. Like, no, they work well, but they're not breaking the game, so to speak. So we'll see. For something that is a mobile phone that is only going to presumably play relatively small games anyway, that shouldn't be a problem. But we'll see. David, but forcing Apple to open up doesn't mean it's going to be good or well supported, right? Like the web rendering engines. Exactly. Yeah, right now, as far as I'm aware, these provisions are not really prescriptive of how a thing has to be done. They're only saying, effectively, you can't have these kinds of monopolies. This law was not put in place targeting specifically Apple. It may have had Apple in mind, but it's not really designed to target Apple. So they're going to force Apple into doing something about these three things. How Apple goes about solving them may not necessarily be the way that we want them to. Now, honestly, I don't think they have a way around the App Store issues. There are a few things they can do, and some ridiculous rules that they can try to make that I assume the European Union would eventually probably slap them down for doing. For example, they could have like some kind of policy preventing access to some really basic APIs. And when I say basic, I mean fundamental APIs if your app doesn't come from the App Store, which would thereby cripple the living hell out of apps, and that would not be okay. That's the sort of thing I could see Apple trying to do. It won't fly. Eventually it would get punished. But that's not to say that Apple won't try some other sneaky stuff, and they do have some advantages. Obviously, iCloud will be inaccessible to any app that doesn't come from the App Store. Likewise, apps may not be allowed access to, again, very simple key things, like, in theory, Keychain, because Keychain is something that gets passed over iCloud. And while it is not in itself inherently part of iCloud, I could see them trying to limit it. And there are a bunch of others. I expect there are plenty of ways that they are going to try to inhibit the ability for third-party apps to be accessible. But we'll see. We are, let's see, this is going into effect in May. So, we're 2 months away, well, almost 3, well, 2.5. We're 2.5 months away from from the Digital Markets Act going into effect in the EU. Obviously, we don't know how that's going to play in the US. I think some of this stuff will come to the US just automatically, like the rendering engine. I don't think Apple's going to restrict the rendering engine in the US. It's dumb. It doesn't make sense. Austin, were you out for a minute? I did bring that up. Or, well, I brought up that Google was working on it. But yeah, honestly, I think I'd be surprised that they didn't have one this entire time. Literally, since they brought Chrome to iOS, I would be surprised that they didn't have a build ready to go in case the day came. But yeah, there was that rumor couple months or so ago claiming that Google was working on it. Yeah, I'm sure they've been working on it, but yeah, they were watching for it. Anyway, yeah, we'll have to see how third-party apps go. I think that's going to be a messy one, and it may only be a thing in the EU. I don't think so. It doesn't make sense to try to make that an EU only thing, especially because the US has been on a slower crawl to this, but this was bound to happen. Like, the Department of Justice was eventually going to crack down on Apple and basically say, no, it's time. We've had enough issues with you. It's time for third-party app stores. Forget arguing. You just can't make a case for this anymore. You have to let people do third-party app stores and sideload apps. So I think if they're smart, they don't try to fight with that one. Then messaging. That's the one where I think we're going to see the big pushback. Because with the other two, let's be kind of brutally honest here. When it comes to a user deciding that with the hardware they own, they would like to be able to run apps that were not passed directly through Apple. Okay. Oh, actually, sorry, there is one other. Oh god, here's the ultimate evil if Apple wants to really stop people from doing this. They could do kind of like an extreme version of what Google does with Android by saying you can flip a switch to allow outside untrusted apps to be installed. But if you do, we're going to take away features. We're going to turn off stuff we don't want you to have. And, they'll have to work and fight to try to come up with stuff that would be a good example. But fundamentally, there might be some stuff that they can argue safely that they can turn off, and it's stuff people will want. The first thing that comes to mind is payments. They might turn around and say, well, if people are able to distribute apps that we can't check, and we don't know with 100% certainty that those apps cannot and do not access like the secure enclave, I think that's what it's called, or they don't access various other things. If we can't be the ones who check that, then we can't necessarily keep these devices safe, so we'll just disable big important features, and those apps just won't work anymore. Those functions won't work anymore. I can see Apple trying to pull that, and I think it's going to go about like anyone would expect. They'll lose a few people, a few customers will turn away from them, and it'll piss off the governments. But it's also the sort of thing where if they do it, they do it, and a whole lot of people just see it as reason that they're not going to leave Apple, and they're not going to leave Apple's specific walled garden. But anyway, what I was about to say is, when it comes down to it, when it comes to third-party browsers and third-party app stores, all anyone is asking Apple to do is to basically put their hands up and back away. These are two spaces where, for the most part, everyone can be sort of self-sustaining. No one's asking for anything weird. No one's asking Apple to fund anything or to support anything special. I mean, to some extent, you can argue that the third-party app stores require some external support from Apple, but the rendering engine stuff, no. That's literally just Apple has to drop a rule from its store. Nothing more. Well, from the store and arguably from the device. I don't think the device enforces this at all, but whatever. Nevertheless, when it comes to stores, Apple would have to add some support to the OS to presumably support the alternatives to the App Store. But none of that is outlandish. None of it's really that hard or insane to do. So all of this is doable. That leads us to iMessage and why it's different. iMessage is a service Apple is paying to support. They have expensive interconnects with all of the carriers. They have servers that have to run and maintain all of this state, all of this information. And they have to be quick and performant. They have to support a lot of weird protocol issues, so on and so forth. Apple is going to fight back on this. Apple's going to fight back hard. Not only is it one of their biggest lock-in features, in fact, most people would argue it is the single biggest lock-in feature of iOS or of iPhones. They have this thing, and nobody, absolutely nobody, is arguing that other people don't want it. And it has been a motivating thing for selling iPhones. So, the question then becomes, what does Apple do to keep using this as an excuse to keep people on iPhones? How do they interoperate with other platforms in an acceptable way? And what does it even mean to interoperate with other platforms? Like, nobody's out there telling Facebook Messenger, oh, you know what? You need to work with Signal. No one's made that argument. No one's even trying to make that argument. But we have Apple, and no one's stopping you from installing Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or I thought I was going to be able to name the others, and I'm just blanking on the other names. But yeah, no one's asking, or nobody's saying that those can't be installed to an iPhone. They can be. No one's arguing that they don't have the permissions to be able to function, because they do, mostly. What people are arguing here is that iMessage is in the way. It is preventing other things from existing in some space. And the only thing, as far as I can tell, that it's really preventing is for people, mostly in the US, to be able to choose the app and who they talk to over a network that is really more about the US than it is anywhere else. Now, that's not to say Apple doesn't, or that's not to say iMessage doesn't get use outside the US. It obviously does, and not just by people who are communicating with people in the US, but things like two-factor authentication. There are still messaging services. There are a lot of services that like to send two-factor authentication or various types of messages via SMS. And so that does pass through iMessage, and naturally you don't have an alternative to that. But the thing is, again, this is something Apple pays for. I don't think Apple is going to have to allow access to iMessage. I don't see that being a remedy here. I don't see it being a solution that the EU is going to try to enforce. Rather, I think they're going to try to force Apple to allow people to send messages to iMessage that are then going to be treated more responsibly. And presumably iMessage will have to send messages back out. How this is going to play, I don't know. In truth, I'm not as optimistic about this solving anything as I think other people are. But that being said, I'm also confused why Europe is going after iMessage so hard. I don't know how heavily it gets used over there, but I feel like it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. But it feels like iMessage, every time there were discussions in like Android Police comment sections, or well, sections on most sites, there would always be people rushing in to say, why are you people even complaining about this? It doesn't make sense to us. Nobody here uses iMessage. Everyone's on WhatsApp. Or, you know, someone would name off some other thing that they personally like. Usually Telegram. Sometimes Signal. So I guess where I'm confused and where I personally question this is, shouldn't this largely come down to just a US problem? And you would think the EU wouldn't really want to get involved? Which kind of begs the question, is the EU just doing this as like a favor to us because we're so bad at solving this? I don't know. Anyway, so Carson said, I'd rather the EU mandate RCS for iOS. I agree. And I agree on the grounds that they just did this for USB. So they should also do it for RCS. I mean, they came right out and said that they wanted to get rid of non-standard things. And effectively, Apple is just choosing not to support a modern standard of thing. Regarding both USB and RCS. So obviously they did support it on their MacBooks, but a lot of devices were still using a very old Lightning connector, and that was problematic. So they basically mandated, no, use the more current thing, get onto the standard, and, you know, accept it. I think the fact that they don't support RCS can be argued. They do support text, or they do support SMS and MMS. So they do support something in the messaging space and the standards messaging space, but they don't support the thing that every carrier in some way, shape, or form now officially supports. So they should just honestly have to support RCS. That is a standards issue. And that's the thing. You don't have to turn this into a problem with iMessage. You turned it into a problem for not having RCS. And that gets them to their endpoint. Fundamentally, I don't think Apple should be forced to change how iMessage works. I don't think that iMessage has to open up to other platforms, so to speak. I think what needs to happen is iMessage just gets to be the same front end that it already is, but it is a front end that has to appropriately support the RCS standard. That to me is the key thing. Either that, or arguably they need to introduce a second messaging app that is permitted to actually work with RCS. I don't think that's in their best interest, so I doubt that's what they would do. But yeah, this is 100% the issue they need to solve. They need to just simply support RCS, because that solves pretty much all of this, and the complaints can go away while still leaving Apple in control the way that it genuinely should be, and not in control in ways that it shouldn't be. Austin, we'll see Google drop RCS improvements so fast in favor of web-based messaging built into messages if this gets approved. Very possibly. Though I'm not really sure how I see that working. Man, my throat's going fast. I had to do a lot of talking yesterday. Um, so, which is there anything interesting to mention that in there? No, not really. I went through the rigmarole of canceling a phone line, which there's a bunch of dumb backstory that's not necessary there, and I also canceled a insurance policy and switched to a different provider, which it's dumb. There's not really a story there, but yeah, whatever. So Austin, I disagree. RCS needs to have an independent way to send messages other than via a phone number first. Okay, you know me. You know that this is an argument I've been making since the beginning. Literally the day that they announced RCS, my first point was, this is dumb. We need to get rid of this dependency on a phone number. However, I think the fact is RCS is already a standard. It is a thing that exists. All of the carriers have already gone on board with this. I was hoping the carriers would force Apple into supporting RCS. They didn't. And I think at this stage they just agreed they don't care. But here's the thing. Yes, RCS should absolutely have introduced a non-phone number solution. And there is, strictly speaking, no reason that can't still happen. Strictly speaking. It's probably not going to happen, but there are ways that they can jerry-rig RCS into supporting other numbers. Or rather, other identification methods. All that said, I don't think the EU should be mandating anything on this. The fact is, RCS exists. It is a workable solution. It is thorough and complete, and it is technically in wide usage. Just not among iPhone users. So, to me, this is a simple cut and dry thing. They can and should solve this in a smarter way. They haven't. And I don't know that they will. I'd like to think it... I want to think it'll happen, but I don't think it will. Let's see. Which, by the way, that is also one of the notable points about standards, is standards are really... They're a good thing because, obviously, all the advantages of standards. There's also noticeably a very bad thing with standards, wherein you gotta move a mountain if you want to relocate the molehill. They don't change easily, especially when governments dictate you have to use a certain standard, as opposed to just everyone collectively agreeing, hey, we have a standard and we'd all kind of like to be using a standard. Oh, hey, someone raised a point about something wrong. Let's change that, or let's add it. All right, here's version 2 of said standard. It fixes these things. That's obviously something that can happen with RCS, but by the time any government gets involved, whatever the version of RCS is, whatever it supports at that time, I would expect that stuff to basically stay the same forever after that. Not literally forever, but for a very, very long time, until people collectively agree, hey, this sucks, we wish you could just use a web front end for everything. Anyway, let's see. So Carson posted this. I have not looked at this yet. Spotify's new design is part TikTok, part Instagram, and part YouTube. I really have not ever used Spotify outside of their web interface like a decade ago. If somebody showed this to me, this the center image, my very first thought is, oh, hey, that's a YouTube short. It looks very much like a YouTube short. The image to the left, it's whatever. The image to the right, that one strikes me as... actually reminds me a lot of the Google Discover feed. Just visually, it kind of draws that to mind. But yeah, I don't know. Is there something interesting in this particular story? I'll just ask you if there's a TLDR, because just looking at them, like, those are literally all the thoughts I have. There's not a lot more I can think of to say from a quick examination, but I don't know. It looks fine, I guess. I don't know what the old interface looked like either, but I know a lot of people complained about it. I'm assuming because people were complaining about it that it wasn't very good. I've heard lots of people complain about usability issues, which isn't necessarily a design aesthetic issue. It's more of how intuitive things are and how buggy things might be, and maybe if they design things in a way that's harmful to users. They're making this like Instagram. Yeah, I guess I can also kind of see the Instagram aspect of it, though, you know, this one on the right, this still, to me, like, this looks, I don't know. The center image, yeah, I can see this. I can see why people compare this to Instagram. It has that sort of, let's fill the screen with an image vibe, but all the overlays on it, those remind me more of YouTube shorts, or, well, YouTube videos in general. The old interface looked kind of like YouTube Music right now. Gotta say, I'm not sure that would be a complaint. I feel like I'm actually just gonna look up the YouTube Music interface. Find the right app. Okay. Yeah, I like this interface too. Just because information density is better. But I wouldn't say it's that much better, so I'm not sure if that necessarily is a win. But I will fully agree with you, or what I think you're implying, that, and obviously what this article is implying. This does have something of an illogical quality to it. Why, like, up here at the top of the image, you can see, I'll zoom in. Okay, that's as far as I can zoom in. But you can see that they have a 5-panel progress indicator at the top. I'm assuming that this is just meant to be a carousel, and it recommends, right now, it's recommending the Good Vibes playlist. It's obviously just about to flip to the next thing, or maybe just did. It has an Instagram-ish look to it. And it's kind of a weird carousel to have. But I don't know that it... I don't know. It's still just triggering more YouTube shorts to me. And to me, when I think of Instagram, I don't think of a lot of text being in the previews. So when I look at the picture on the right, I'm seeing too much text at the bottom of this thing. Like, they have obviously a cover image, but there's a lot of text there. And I know that's for podcasts, but that to me is the difference. You guys are hitting me, or well, Carson's now hitting me with topics just after I say, hey, I'm not sure how much longer my voice will hold up. Google One brings VPN to the $2 a month plan, adding dark web interface, dark web info monitoring. What the hell? Dark web monitoring. What the absolute ding battery is this? $2 for a VPN is a good deal per month. It's not bad. So okay, so yeah, this is the storage. The thing about it, my understanding is Austin, yes, exactly. I think Magic Eraser is their bigger thing. But okay. Here's my problem with Google One VPN. Obviously Google says that it's not logging or documenting or recording anything from users. I think any reasonable person knows that that's not entirely true. I think we can all safely assume that there is at least some amount of anonymized something happening here. What it is, how it's working, those are debatable. But I think there's a very safe assumption that this VPN is at least collecting some kind of information, if even just for law enforcement purposes. So there is a reason why people might not want to go with Google's very, very low cost VPN in favor of something else. But yes, I will agree. That is a really low price if what you're looking for is being able to simulate being in another location. Yeah, I know the security analysis report is good. But look, I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist on this. I just consider myself a cautious thinker on this. I just tend to look at this and I think, maybe if you're doing a lot of piracy, or if you're doing a lot of hacking, this might not be the VPN you would choose. That's what I'm getting at. If you're doing things that are just like getting around Netflix's geographic restrictions, then hey, which actually, okay, this says VPN by Google One is aimed at security rather than bypassing geographic context restrictions. Okay, so maybe this isn't good for that. Masking IP address from networks and third parties. It works with all apps and browsers on your device. Google has published a white paper on how it works, while there's this external audit. Okay. So, okay, this raises a really big issue to me. Fine, it masks your IP address. Great. That's kind of nice in ways. But what do most people get a VPN for? I mean, honestly, what do most people get a VPN for? They're probably, like, at least most of the people I've talked to, if you're not specifically working in, like, the tech press, where you need to sometimes fake being in another country for that purpose, which, I mean, is the same function. Most of the people who are using a VPN are doing it so that they can watch Netflix or some other streaming service in a country where it's either not supported, or they want to be able to see stuff that is only shown in a specific country or group of countries, rather than whatever that service offers to your home location. Yeah, there are things like stepping around the video bandwidth, or rather the quality limitations for something like YouTube. Yes, that is a thing. I fully acknowledge that is a thing. I don't think there are a lot of people specifically trying to get a VPN to do that. It's, I suppose, kind of nice. Google One offers it. But yeah, I guess my issue here is I don't think that this is solving enough of the reasons why people want a VPN. Not that it isn't useful as a VPN, and my personal preference is the fact that you're talking about encoding something so that local Wi-Fi is not a concern. That to me is the real reason for this. You want this VPN so that you can connect to public Wi-Fi and feel reasonably confident that somebody local is not snooping on your communications. That is the reason for Google One VPN, in my mind. Are there some other tangent advantages? Yes, but that to me is the only real reason for Google One VPN for the most part. But yeah, if you're getting around like Verizon's video restrictions, yay for that too. Let's see. Austin, it also stops the carriers from selling some of your data. Yeah. I feel like it doesn't stop them from selling a lot of your data though. Strictly speaking, I think that's a limiting element in this. I don't think too many people care about that. I'm not saying people don't care about it. There are obviously plenty of people who do, but I think the average person has already just either doesn't understand anything about carriers selling data and they don't think that they're doing it, or I think a lot of people have just maybe resigned themselves to that fact, which I don't know. I don't consider that cynical. I think it's just pragmatic. Yeah, we're gonna go with the word pragmatic to describe this. So yeah, let's see. Regardless, yeah, I mean, cheers. I'm glad that they're bringing it to a lower price tier. I do think that's a good thing. I'm just not overly excited by the function of this VPN. That's what I'm trying to get at. Let's see. The dark web report and monitoring. Meanwhile, after adding more consumer Google Photos features in recent months, Google One is also boosting its security and privacy credentials with a dark web report. Oh, before continuing, yeah, when it comes to the overall subscription, while I think the VPN is very good, it is cool, it needs to be there, again, for public Wi-Fi, like that is a legitimate, really big advantage. Yeah, I kind of think the Magic Eraser is the thing that will drive more new people to subscribe for something, to subscribe for Google One. The VPN is a great advantage, and being at a lower price point might actually drive a lot of people too. But I think Magic Eraser is probably the thing that will actually motivate the largest number of new people to jump on this now that it's available. Okay, so dark web reporting. Monitor the dark web for your info. Start monitoring your Gmail address. Choose to add other info to monitor later. Oh, that is always concerning to me. Austin, you think Magic Eraser is meh? I mean, I'm talking about new people. Bear in mind, if you were one of those people who was like, oh, I really need VPN for my phone, sure, you might have hated the fact that it was too expensive otherwise, and the new low price is the thing that appeals to you. But I think if most people don't already have a VPN for their phone, this isn't about to move them to do it. Just because it's a cheaper way to get it doesn't mean that, like, again, like if they already had VPNs, then that was something that was important to them. Maybe they'll switch, maybe they won't, but I think a lot of people are too lazy to switch until some other thing comes along. If you're talking about how to say this, if you're talking about the motivating thing that gets people's attention and draws them in paying attention to the thing. I think Magic Eraser's the thing that would happen because it's an actual new feature that has had a lot of hype, and it will get the attention of people. Carson, I wouldn't pay for Google One just for Magic Eraser either, but I still think it's less of a gimmick than some of the other gimmicks in the past. I've used it in the past to, quote, perfect some shots. Yeah. And let me be clear. I'm not saying that somebody out there, and I know that this isn't how Carson meant it, but this is kind of how I want to specifically call it out. It's not that I think too many people are out there going, oh, Magic Eraser is now available. I can't wait to spend $2 a month so I can have Magic Eraser. That is not at all what I'm suggesting. This is the other version of it where it's people mostly don't pay attention to this stuff, but they just heard, oh, Magic Eraser is now available to everyone. Huh. What does it take? Oh, I have to subscribe to Google One? Well, what comes with Google One? Oh, hey. More storage, VPN, apparently a dark web monitoring. Okay. And, whatever other selection of things. That, to me, is the difference here. The Magic Eraser is the thing that gets people's attention. It's the advertising gimmick. It's sort of like, lost leaders in a store. Somebody goes into the store so that they can buy the $23 microwave that has been marked down from like $150. Yes, this is a ridiculous extreme example, but let's be honest. This kind of thing happens on Black Friday all the time, or used to at least. So you go into the store to buy this one deeply discounted thing, or, you could even talk about this in context of groceries, like Costco has $5 chickens. Do you think they're making a profit on those $5 chickens? Actually, it scares me that they could be, but no. Costco's probably not making any profit on their $5 chickens. What they're doing, though, is they're getting people to show up in the store. Those people get in, see a huge line, and go, I'm not going to stand in line for like 20 minutes just so I can buy 2 chickens for $5. And then they go buy 10 other things. They fill a cart, possibly, with a bunch of other stuff. To me, that's what Magic Eraser is. It is a thing that Google is putting out there to get people to pay attention to Google One. So, and once they get people paying attention, they get people on the hook, and lo and behold, once you're on, you're probably not going to leave it. And hey, now that you're on Google One, you also get a discount at the Google store for buying new phones and hardware and Nest products and whatever else. And you're going to get, which means maybe you'll start buying a Pixel phone from now on. Maybe you'll pay for this thing or that thing. This Google One, they're building an ecosystem here where a lot of things are meant to attract people to subscribing to Google One, and then Google One is inherently itself a method of getting you more into Google's other products. Give it time. There will be something eventually attached to Nest coming from Google One. I've got a strong suspicion of this. Carson, I think Google One is slowly turning into Google's all-in-one random subscription thing. To be fair, that is what everyone said they wanted at one point in history. It's just that the things that Google is putting into it are not the subscriptions anybody wanted. Everybody wanted that subscription to be YouTube Premium with some extra storage and, I don't know, a couple of other oddball things. I don't think anyone wanted it to be Magic Eraser or dark web monitoring. God, that's not gonna stop sounding silly. Austin, it seems like it's slowly getting worth the price. I still want an actual one Google plan for everything. Yeah. The only thing is, and I've said this before, the big problem with that, there are, in my mind, two things that would boost that price up to the point that it would no longer be interesting. Because a lot of people do not want the things that are offered by those. The first one is obvious. It's YouTube TV. It would be an extremely expensive plan because of YouTube TV. And I don't think anybody wants that. I think people want... If you were to offer people a Google One plan that was... Trying to think of a decent number. Let's just say $9 or $10 a month. And it included all the stuff that's in Google One now. A little bit of storage for that price. It includes YouTube Premium for one person, not a family. And, I don't know, a couple of other oddball things. Basically, all of the random subscription stuff that people want. But it just so happens to exclude YouTube TV. I'm sure that would be very popular. I think a lot of people would like it. The problem is, if the plan includes YouTube TV, it's too expensive. There's no way they can do that for cheap, and it would cost them an arm and a leg. So customers are not going to like that one, unless they happen to already be people that want YouTube TV. Austin, never understood why you can't use Google One storage for Nest cameras. Exactly. That's it. I'm not even going to say more than that. Just exactly. That, to me, is one of the dumbest things, because it absolutely should be that way. The entire sales pitch of Google One is that the storage is usable across Google. Well, Nest belongs to Google. Why the hell can you not use the storage on Nest? That's literally the point of this. Except not specifically Nest, but still, that is the whole purpose of it. It's not quite to the level of false advertising, but it sure as hell feels like false advertising to say you can use Google One storage everywhere in Google. Yeah, so anyway, this dark web monitoring, just glancing at this. Okay, this is the same warning system that everybody else has. Yeah, so you can put in... Yeah, you can put in personal details. The problem I've always had with this is, in theory, you could be putting in stuff that Google doesn't have or shouldn't have. And you could be opening yourself up to future problems with this. Not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but oh, Austin, good Letterkenny call out. I'm assuming you know Letterkenny and are not just and didn't just rely on Tinner to get that one. But yeah, some part of me sits here a little bit skeptical that this is the place that I would want to trust this report to happen. But hey, you know, if all you have is money for one subscription, this is probably better than none. Though I can think of a few other places that do okay with this too, for free. Yes, love the show. Yeah. Carson, wonder if it'll be abused. I you know, hard to predict, but I just never feel comfortable with. I don't feel comfortable with the idea of intentionally giving more info to a company that says we'll watch for this info. That always feels a little like you might be handing over the keys for no particular benefit. Carson, what if you use it to monitor someone else's info? Yeah, maybe. I guess it kind of depends on what these reports show, doesn't it? In theory, this is just a report that's going to watch for big leaks in databases. If you already have somebody else's info, you don't need the leak in a database. Wouldn't mind using it to monitor your email address. Yeah, I mean that one feels like a safe enough thing. The only one that I don't like is this button down here for add SSN. And to some extent, it's maybe not a good idea to associate your name, your birth date, and your email address all together. Those could technically be risky to include together, but I wouldn't worry too much about those. But intentionally giving them your SSN, that's just iffy. Yeah, Austin, honestly, that really is the best move. Also, I don't know how much you guys pay attention to this, but has anyone recently heard of a trend called overemployed? If you have, let's see, then you may have heard of a thing called, I'm trying to double check this before I say it. Carson, oh yeah. Yeah, overemployed, it is a new-ish, not really new, but it's kind of popularized. Anyway, TWN, okay. Yeah. If you've heard of overemployed, it's this concept where people work multiple jobs because they can do multiple jobs within the time of a regular job. Basically, their regular job is not filling out their day, so they may as well work a second job. And as long as they presumably can do both jobs sufficiently and are not overworking themselves in the process, then this is supposed to be, ideally, a very sustainable idea. Now, personally, I think it is somewhat disgusting a little bit right now, given that there are a whole bunch of people who are hunting for work, and that is a bit more of a problem. Yeah, it's also picking up a lot with manager roles and stuff like that. It's most common with software engineering jobs, but there's quite a few others. I've seen actually a lot of design people also jumping into this. Anyway, one of the things that is recommended is kind of on the same line as freezing your credit. There's also a thing owned by Equifax called the True Work Number, which is, or TWN for short. If you want, go ahead and look this up. Anyway, it basically gives your work history. And to some extent, like, it can show a lot of info that people probably would look at and go, wow, that is creepy info nobody should have on me. Anyway, in addition to freezing your credit, it may not even be the worst idea to also put a freeze or lock or whatever the term is for the TWN, which you can look that up if you like. It's not hard to find details because these guys have talked extensively about the TWN. It seems to be one of the only things they ever like to talk about, in fact. And I know right now there are 2 to 3 people who are immediately searching, what the hell's a TWN? Again, it is owned by Equifax, or part of what Equifax offers. And it's something that basically when an employer does a background check, chances are this is what they're going to get. Or this is part of what they're going to look at. So yeah, anyway. Yeah, if all things considered, if you're talking about monitoring services, if you don't care to pay for something else, I can see using Google's. I'd be a little bit incredulous about adding a social security number for them to monitor. It's not that I think Google's going to do anything bad with it, but I also... There's just a part of me that feels like it's too much information in one place. And that is the natural concern. Okay, anyway. Let's see. So, you hit that. I think... I'm not going to say this is the last topic, just because I have some feeling someone's going to pop up with something else to surprise me, but this is the last thing I have prepared. Oh wow, I just realized I hadn't looked at this before, but this post by Platformer, their hero image is specifically credited as a creation of Dolly, which, though I have to give a little bit of credit. It actually looks kind of decent for a Dolly creation. Anyway, so that being the case, I'm going to switch to this image though. I'd rather give ours the credit for the background image. And Platformer has been slightly icky as a thing. Okay, let's get that sized up. So hey, look, no weird white borders for no reason. Carson, did we talk about Android 14? We did, and aside from pointing out just like a couple small things, my opinion on Android 14 was basically, yeah, this is what you get with a developer preview 2. There's not really that much there. It was a pretty small update, all things considered. I mean, there was a lot of changes, but it was mostly things that either have been previously announced, previously discovered, or just really, really tiny things that don't have that much going on. It's not that it's a bad update. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just at a certain point, meh, it's not moving the dial a whole lot. The only thing that I think was really truly significant is that it looks like they enabled vendor extensions for the Camera X API, but we don't actually know that it's implemented correctly or working yet, so yeah, does that matter? We have to wait to see if that actually does something before we assume that it does something. Anyway, so I think we have to talk about Twitter. Twitter was down. Twitter was so down. Twitter was more down to clown than it has been down before. So sorry, I'm going to switch back to Platformer to pull up this. So this year, there have been six major outages at Twitter. It's March, yo. 6 major outages. They're happening like every couple of weeks. This is nuts. This is ridiculous. And honestly, it's barely March. We're barely through the first week of this month. There's a lot of year left, and that they're going to have a lot more outages. But yeah, anyway, they had one. It was yesterday? I want to say it was yesterday. Double checking that. Oh no, sorry. I guess. Oh, Monday. Wow, that is the weirdest brain fart. I was just thinking, yeah, they had it on Monday. For some reason, my brain was stuck on it's still Tuesday. Yesterday was a long day, I'm telling you. Anyway, so they've now had another outage. As it turns out, at least as people are hearing, the cause of this outage is that a lot of people have confirmed that the outage was caused because of a change that was made that disabled more of the quote-unquote free API. the portion of the API that was allowing other apps and services to do anything with Twitter without paying for it. I don't know if this is necessarily accurate, but I believe this includes posting, but I know it has anything to do with reading the API. So yeah, this is a devastating clusterfuck of such epic proportions. Anyway, so apparently in the process of changing the free API to no longer be available, it apparently took down a ton of internal services at Twitter. It caused a whole lot of things to break, not just apps outside of Twitter. And basically people were getting all kinds of dumb server responses telling them that things were broken and not letting them use Twitter. So the fact that they've now had 6 of these this year just leaves me blown away that this is a company that is losing its value so rapidly. People are seeing it for the laughingstock that it is. I think actually the biggest shock out of all of this is that oops, no, not there, over here. The biggest shock here, honestly, is that there hasn't been a much more rapid exodus from Twitter. Oh, this is annoying. Why does that happen? Okay, anyway. I feel like with all of these outages, people should probably be looking at Mastodon a little more closely. For whatever reason, that doesn't seem to be happening, which, okay, whatever. But I guess the most likely case is a lot of people have already kind of moved on to Mastodon if they're going to, and everyone else is just like, oh, screw it, we're along for the ride, let's hope for the best, and maybe we'll do okay. But yeah, people seem to be putting up with Twitter stupidity at this stage. Anyway, so apparently the cause of this, or so has been reported, there is only one site stability engineer remaining, or at least one who has been tasked to this particular project, and supposedly that person made a mistake. It led to a multi-hour outage, and pretty much everyone inside of Twitter has just progressed to straight up talking to the press and saying, "Oh yeah, you know, we're becoming numb to this. We don't really care anymore. We're working, we're doing what we can, but it's getting to be too normal." And a lot of them have complained that there's a lot of technical debt left over from Twitter 1.0, something that we've talked about here before. Twitter has always been kind of in a state of catastrophic disrepair. It's always been held together by duct tape and Elmer's glue. It's not to say that it is unfixable. It's certainly fixable, but the fundamentals of Twitter are not great. And so the odds are it's probably going to be broken for a long time to come. Elon actually posted something, I don't know if it's on here, but I believe he said is it going to be in this post? Maybe not. Oops. Get the focus correct, and okay, yeah. So he did post, "This platform is so brittle, will be fixed shortly," which was only half true. He added later that a small API change had massive ramifications. "The code stack is extremely brittle for no good reason. Will ultimately need a complete rewrite." I look forward to hearing about this. I feel like a complete rewrite of a social network the size and scale of Twitter is probably going to be a interesting avenue. I think we're going to see a lot of chaos result from this. I think we're only at the beginning of the outages. Yeah, I know the Hallie drama. Okay, we can talk about that at the end of this. So yeah, the end result of this is Twitter is basically just going to be in a perpetual state of failure. As a lot of people have been pointing out, this is precisely what a lot of Twitter engineers predicted would happen. Because basically, since there aren't people there to protect things that are about to break, and with the inherent knowledge of what is broken, then as a result, every time something breaks, which is happening very obviously very frequently now, it's doomed to keep falling apart. And the big question has been repeatedly, like, how long until there's a database corruption that is literally unrecoverable? How long before some system gets itself stuck in some kind of a loop or a failed state, and they don't know what server needs to be rebooted? They don't know which piece of code or which configuration file needs to be changed. I think this stuff, I mean, we don't know, but it's starting to look more and more like this could be a problem that is doomed to happen. And if it does, Twitter could be out for days, weeks, who knows. Whatever the case, at this stage, I have to ask the question, like, if someone were to buy Twitter today, I'm just very curious about this. How much do you think Elon could get for it? My guess is that he'd be lucky if he could pull anything over about 15 billion. In my rough estimate, I figure Twitter is only worth about 1/3 of what it was when he bought it. Because they fired a lot of talent, good, bad, and otherwise. They've shut down and removed a whole bunch of things that were intellectual property and assets that belong to Twitter. They have scared off so many of the advertisers. So many advertisers have just completely ended any association with Twitter. They don't want anything more to do with it. So there goes a lot of income. Like, all of the different things that make a business worth having are gone. And they're hemorrhaging users even still. I struggle to believe that it's worth anywhere close to what he paid for it. And in fact, I think at most it's worth about 1/3 of what he paid. And we'll see if it ever pans out. I kind of doubt it will. That said, oh boy, this is just getting, honestly, like, it's both funnier to watch and kind of sad to watch all in one. But hey, it is what it is. We'll see what happens. So the infamous Hallie story. Hallie or Holly, I forget. I think it was supposed to be Holly. So I've heard about this story. I'm going to rehash as best I can from just what I've heard. If I thought to prepare this, I would pull up more. But this particular person is a design engineer, or, well, he owned a design company. They've contracted with dozens, hundreds maybe, of major Silicon Valley companies, like all over the tech industry. They have been very involved in designing coming up with interfaces, including a lot of stuff that is accessibility oriented. Basically, big deal. Well, that company, Twitter bought it. And in the process, basically bought this guy who was at the top of it. He happens to suffer from muscular dystrophy, and as a result, cannot do extended typing. Elon Musk got into a fight with him. Before we get into the fight. Anyway, this guy, a couple of days ago, basically said, well, technically 2 weeks ago, or almost 2 weeks ago, basically said, hey, it seems like I was fired, but I can't seem to get confirmation, and I also haven't been paid yet. So, how about we get this sorted out? Okay, bud? Elon Musk has since gotten into a dumb fight with this guy, which accomplished absolutely nothing. It's comical how much it accomplished nothing. And basically Elon tried to talk trash about him, indicating that he didn't actually do any work for the company, which was not true. He tried indicating that because this guy was claiming to have a disability, it was his excuse for not doing work, which, again, dumb. And especially for someone who was effectively at a top-level management role. Or sorry, not top level, but high level. Better term. Anyway, so this stupid mess has gone on a few different rounds. What eventually happened is, happened shortly after Elon talking trash, is this guy responded by saying, yeah, no, here's what I actually did at the company. Here are all the things I did at the company that are pretty big deals. This stupid go around basically resulted in Elon Musk kind of having to eat his words, but not admitting he was wrong. And then he basically decided to double down and be a bigger dick. And he's cut off Holly from a few other things, basically talk trash and continue to talk trash. Though he did finally confirm that Holly was fired. And at this point, it raises the question of, is Elon Musk going to actually pay out his contractual obligations to Holly? The likelihood that some people seem to expect is no, because Elon seems to not like paying out money that is owed, both to contractors, sellers, his rent, because apparently paying rent is too hard of a thing for a billionaire to do. Yeah, it's been bad. So in all likelihood, this guy is probably going to have to take Elon to court. Well, Twitter more specifically, but in particular, Elon will probably be a named defendant. There's also, people have also been raising a question about this, that the Americans with Disabilities Act basically says you cannot fire somebody for reasons of disability. And Elon's tweets are actually very clear and basically pose as evidence that part of what Elon is firing this guy for is his disability. So there actually is already a lawsuit going on regarding this, and it's pretty likely this guy is about to become possibly the face and figurehead of that lawsuit. He's not part of that lawsuit. There's a class action lawsuit by several people with disabilities aiming this at Elon Musk and Twitter. But I'm thinking this guy will probably be asked to join that lawsuit and will probably become the face of it at some point, because everyone now knows who the hell he is. If they didn't already know him, they know who he is. So yeah, this is going to look really, really bad for Twitter when people are basically like kind of tearing down Elon Musk, Twitter, and everything else. And that lawsuit is very likely to be probably a big payout. And it's going to be really hard to defend from Twitter's position, because everything they're bringing up is basically saying Elon made it impossible for them to work there. So we'll see what happens, but I think this is gonna bite Elon right in the ass so hard. It's not gonna be, I mean, it'll be hilarious, but it's not gonna be funny at the same time. So I certainly wish this guy the best, because it seems like he's not a big fan of Elon's. And trying to think if there's any other details from this story. Oh yeah, this particular encounter was a real gem. Elon asked, "What have you been doing?" And the guy goes, I'd have to break confidentiality to answer the question. But you can say that." And Elon's like, "Yeah, it's approved. Just go ahead." The guy proceeds to list that he led an effort to save about $500,000 on a software as a service contract, and supported closing down many others, presumably, saving, one would assume, multiple millions of dollars. We'll see. He led a prioritization of design projects across the company to make sure we were able to deliver with a small team. Led design crits, I'm not sure what that's supposed to be short for, to help level up design across the company. By the way, just as a side note, I'm so done and tired with people talking about leveling up. That term has gotten overused to the just worst point lately. And it doesn't help that I happen to be watching the season 8, I think it is, of The Flash, where like every episode, I think they're contractually required to say the term level up like 4 times. It's exhausting. Let's see, he was a hiring manager for all design roles and worked on efforts to steer the company away from focusing on power users and onto younger users. Because after all, Twitter's user base was no longer cool with the youngs. The youngs, for the large part, kind of were shifting away, and they were going more towards Instagram, TikTok, and a few other places. And that's not good for any social network. Let's see. Yeah, he went on to talk about a few more things. I won't go into the whole thing. So yeah, anyway, Elon has done a lot of shit talking. It's not a good image, but that's pretty much what we're used to from Muskie. He talks a lot of trash and then doesn't know what the hell he's saying. So douchebag's gonna douche. Anyway, so I think I pretty much exhausted the topic list. I don't have anything else lined up. We actually kind of hit a lot of topics. To tell you the truth, I didn't think it was going to go this long. Oh, sorry, needed to stretch. Anyway, yeah, especially going this long without Corbin here. Kind of figured we'd wheel about on some AI stuff for a little bit longer, but no. Anyway, so yeah, with that, as a side note, it looks like I see Carson typing. What's about to happen? Yeah, oh yeah, the complete rewrite line. Yeah, I mentioned that from the articles earlier. But yeah, this is the tweet where he says the stupid thing. A small API change had massive ramifications. The code stack is extremely brittle for no good reason. I mean, here's the thing. As much as he needs to be criticized, because he's a doofus, there's one thing he has always been right about. And it's because a lot of people have been saying this for years. Twitter was built in a hurry. It was built poorly. The original developers did not design it to be scaled well. This is a well-known thing. I've mentioned many times. This is why the fail whale used to be a thing. The fail whale existed because of this. They built a service that was not even close to ready to become as big as it did. So yeah, I mean, this has always been a problem. So yeah, he's right to criticize Twitter for being very brittle, for being poorly built, for having a lot of technical debt. All of these things would be absolutely dead on true. I haven't seen the code base myself, or any part of it, outside of like maybe a few random screenshots here and there. But this is the thing, like, everybody knows that Twitter was built to fall apart, basically. It is just the nature and design of Twitter. The problem is, if you ask me to pick anyone out there to lead an effort to rewrite Twitter, do you know what name I'm not going to put on my list? Musk. Because I will bet right now he's already ordering a bunch of people to do a rewrite without fixing things to keep them stable as they are now. When they do a rewrite, I'm pretty confident there will be a ton of features just intentionally left out, intentionally forgot. There will be a ton of features that they leave out unintentionally and they forget unintentionally. And there will be, in the meantime, there will be massive chaos. Not only that, but I'm expecting their rewrite. Anyone who has never worked on software, you may not really understand this well enough because of how big of a deal it is. But databases. If you have an inefficient database, if you have a poorly structured database, if the schema for that database is not really good, a database can be a disaster to try to clean up, bordering on impossible. I will bet money Twitter's database is where they're going to have an endless stream of problems. I think that is going to be borderline unfixable. With enough time and enough effort, you could fix it. But this is a guy who wants to move at breakneck speeds. He wants everything done yesterday. You put these two things together, no chance. No chance at all. This is going to be an unmitigated disaster when they try launching a new thing. And if it tries to write data back to the database based on old data, it'll only get worse. It'll be a database that is possibly recorrupting itself as time goes by. And for this reason, I think that this is a ship that is likely to never sail. I think they will never have a complete rewrite. If they were smart, I will say right now, I think the smartest move is to start deconstructing a lot of their microservices, pin down the ones that they can fix and rewrite, and make sure that they are working good and properly, and start making a process of going through all of their things piece by piece and fixing them so that they have a future. That's where I would go with this. It's slower, it will cost more money, but in the end, it can be made to work. What I have a feeling he's going to do is probably just order someone to start writing Twitter from the ground up and just make it work. So there's probably going to be a team of like 30 developers actually building the new Twitter, which is how I think this will end up going. There will be a quote-unquote new Twitter. And I bet most of the old tweets at some point will just be purged. I could be wrong in that, but it's easier to purge them than to try to keep a new database going. Or try to fix the existing database. The other possibility, it could be more like, yeah, we still support the old thing, and it runs through an old API and old everything. And here's the new Twitter. It just kind of gets coolly mixed in with the old Twitter until everybody is just on new Twitter. And then for archival purposes, they just keep the old thing running, kind of, until they crash it and burn it. And the new thing will just be the new thing. It'll have no history. It'll just be a wash of garbage. And basically most of Twitter's history will have just become forgotten. Carson. Yeah, a complete rewrite would fix things, but they absolutely do not have the bandwidth or capacity to do that now. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that is the reality of it. You need to have a lot of bandwidth into things like this. Not only that, but you need to have... Honestly, you need to have some people who come in... I've worked a few projects like this. Let me start by saying that. I've worked a few projects like this where I stepped into a company, usually with a couple of other people, and we would have to sit down and talk with the people who already built a thing. The reason they were calling us in was basically damage repair. Our job was to come in and figure out where people screwed up and do it right. Because the people who worked there already did something wrong. Or maybe they were tasked with fixing something impossible. And it's hard work. But 9 times out of 10, what it means is coming in, sort of sitting people down who already know what they're doing and saying, okay, tell us how you built this. We're gonna build a model effectively. Like we're gonna sketch out a model of what it is that you built, and then we're gonna go back through and reshape this into something that's actually gonna work. You kind of need new eyes on this thing, along with the old eyes who can tell you how it all works. And the new eyes eventually either have to take it over, which is a terrible outcome usually, or the new eyes have to help the old eyes, the ones that are experienced with this platform. They need to help them understand what is being changed and why, so that they can ultimately continue it on in their own fashion. But yeah, full rewrites are not going to fly here. Not just a blind full rewrite. They're going to have to incorporate a lot of what a lot of the existing developers already figured out and what they had to learn. I just don't think that he's got the patience to let something like that be done correctly. And yeah, that's ultimately, I just think this is going to make Twitter look even more ridiculous by the end. And I'm here for it. I'm okay with that. Let's see. And who be quoting no good reason. Yeah. Well, I'll even be the first to agree that Twitter is in a state worse than it should be for no good reason. I've heard things. Twitter is worse than it possibly should have been. The no good reason thing comes from the fact that they did not really architect Twitter at all. A lot of what happened at Twitter was people kind of were responsible for their own systems, and even though like their system might have to talk to some other system, these two did not necessarily ever really communicate how that was supposed to work, or why, or in what ways it was going to be done. And every time Twitter came up with some issue it wanted to solve, they did quick fixes. I mean, not to say that they didn't architect a lot of stuff properly, but they also did a lot of quick fixes. They went through and patched things. And in the process of patching things, very rarely did they get somebody who knew what they were doing to step in and actually plan a really good patch or a really good fix. Instead, they kind of just had the like, oh, hey, you're free. Can you come solve this problem for us today? And we promise we'll let you work on it in the future and get it right. And that future never comes. I've worked on projects like this too. At my very first programming job, literally just giving one of those terrible perfect examples. My very first programming job, there was one day they needed to have a spot on the website. Apparently they were doing some marketing campaign where you're supposed to go to the website and enter a code and it would give you some kind of a discount. So apparently they didn't realize that they didn't have this capability built into the website until the day that this thing was supposed to go live, like, or the day before. So they come in and ask like, hey, where is the project at? Can somebody create this feature and roll it out like on the spot? And because of the way that the rollouts were done on the site at that time at this company, that was it wasn't even possible to do a rollout that fast. It was a very slow process. They would have had to coordinate a couple of people to basically do a in-person delivery, and they didn't have things set up. So they screwed this thing up. They screwed the pooch pretty horribly. Not really that horribly, but you get the idea. Anyway, so the one thing that they could do was make some basic changes to the front of the website. And by basic changes, what I really mean is they could inject HTML and JavaScript safely. I say inject, but it wasn't exactly that. They could change the content of certain pages to an extent. And this was a capability the marketing department had. So they ended up coming to me, the only person at the place that seemed to know JavaScript. They came to me and asked if there was anything I could do. I ended up telling them very clearly, very plainly, if you need this, I can do it. Oh, and by the way, they needed this done in, I'm not kidding, about, I don't know, I think they needed it done in like an hour and a half or something. And it's like, look, I can make a dumb little text box with some JavaScript that'll redirect to a page. Like, that's fine. That's super easy. Anyone could just do a show source and find the code and know what to type in. I don't think you guys care about that, but you know, if it matters, that's a thing. Also, this code cannot be changed outside of just going in and manually changing the JavaScript. It can't accept other codes. Like, this code is hard-coded into the JavaScript. That's it. Like, there's not a lot I can do under the circumstances. And bear in mind, this was 2005, so limitations of JavaScript at the time were worse. Through all of that, I told them very plainly, I can write this for you. I know it's a quick fix, but after I write this for you, you have to promise to never use this again. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. We won't use it again. We understand that this is just really janky, quick code. Understood. It was, I think, 3 weeks later. I'm not even sure if it was that long. It might have been 2 weeks later. They came to me and said, hey, can you modify this so it'll accept 2 codes? Yeah, that's how this stuff happens. They went from promising it would never get used again to, oh crap, we screwed up again the exact same way as before. Can we just keep reusing the same bad patch? Eventually, a bad patch becomes the solution. And that's how no good reason happens. That's how you get to this terrible, unsustainable code base, because it is just fix after fix after fix, all without ever actually having somebody sit down and try to do it correctly. So yeah, that is the hell that Elon bought himself into, and it's the same hell that he has helped perpetuate in the last few months since he bought it. I mean, realistically, Twitter's code, I'm sure, is at least twice as bad as it was before, because all they've been doing is quick patches. Several of the developers have confirmed that they're in a dire, just dead rush to try to fix and tweak and adjust every little thing. Some of the things that have come out about like how they're handling Twitter Blue and the badges, it is just comical. It looks so amateurish. It's stuff most college students wouldn't even consider acceptable code. But that's what's happening. So yeah, honestly, I don't see it getting better. I don't see it improving. I think this is just how Twitter is going to be from here on out, until such a time as he either is convinced to appoint a CEO, which we'll see, or at some point he finally gives up and realizes he needs to sell it, and by that time I think we're going to be looking at a, I don't know, $2 to $3 billion company. It's not going to be worth much. So yeah, there's my prediction. It's such a good thing he took this private, because can you imagine if he just forced his way in with a typical takeover and left this thing public? So many people would hold on to their stock in this company, and it would just keep tumbling. It would have just died on the vine, and it would be screwed. But hey, there we are. Okay. Quick chug of water. So, I think that about covers it. I can't think of too many other... Garson, you bastard. So for anyone who doesn't automatically know that we're talking about the Last of Us series, yeah, that's what he's referring to. I mean, I liked episode 8. I just didn't think that it was the strongest. Or rather, I think that it was poorly thought out in some of the ways. Like, they did a really great job of replicating the look of the game. The sets looked great. The storyline was fine. But I think they did David kind of wrong. Austin just finished 5. Let's see, 5. So, okay, you just saw the fight in Kansas City. As they're trying to get out of Kansas City, that is. Or rather, I guess they have left Kansas City at the end of 5. Anyway, yeah, I think they did a good job with 8. My problem with it was, one, they gave Joel a little too small of a part. The after show kind of discusses this. You've been watching the game streams like 2 weeks late after each episode. Oh, hey, I'm glad the game streams are still coming in useful. But yeah, let's see. Wait, okay, Austin. So, out of curiosity, have you ever played the game or did you watch the game streams previously? I'm kind of curious because from the perspective of somebody who is only seeing the show first, or I want to know if someone is only seeing the show first and is then watching the game and coming out with any similar, or which do you feel is better at portraying parts of the story? Do you feel like one, oh, you caught like one old game stream. Okay. Okay. But yeah, I just don't know that, I feel like the game was just better at portraying many parts of the story, or rather the connection between Joel and Ellie. The show, I think Pedro Pascal is Joel. Like, he nails Joel perfectly. Every time I look at Bella Ramsey, I feel like I'm watching somebody who is on the same trip as the original Ellie. And this girl just happens to also call herself Ellie. But she feels like a very different person. Awesome. The show seems to have bad pacing. Yeah, that is a big part of the problem I'm kind of having with it. I mean, a game stream, let's be fair, there's a whole lot of gameplay in between, which is not exactly the best pacing per se, if you're just watching it straight. But I think there was a lot better balance in the game. The show, especially in the last 2 episodes, with 7 and 8, I feel like the pacing has been off. Where I really struggled with the pacing on 8 is they spent a lot of time in the wrong places. They put, like, the scene, Awesome's, I will avoid spoilers for obvious reasons, but I think I'll say enough. I think I can say enough that it won't be too hard to avoid spoilers, but at the same time not leave it too vague. But the conversation between Ellie and David around the deer went on for way too long. In the game, this is literally like a minute. In the show, it's like 5. Maybe not 5, but it sure feels like that. But then there's other points in the episode where I feel like they could have spent more time, and they didn't. They needed to hit honestly, the biggest problem I'm seeing is that they need to hit their like 50-minute time limit, or 52-minute, whatever it is, somewhere in that ballpark. They're trying to hit that time limit, and so they're rushing certain scenes or rushing certain aspects of the story where I think it would have been better if they took a little bit more time, made the episodes like an hour, 10 minutes, or thereabouts, and just do what they needed to do. And yeah, anyway, then without getting into the spoilers, which Austin, if you haven't already, or if you feel so inclined, go back through the TV channel and check out our threads, the threads where we've been discussing the show. And I have a funny feeling you'll probably see some comments you either think are ridiculous or some that you completely agree with. I don't know. But yeah, we've had discussions after every week. Carson, at some moments, Bella nails Ellie really well, and others not so much. Yeah, that is definitely part of it. Like, this sounds weird, but I feel like if you close your eyes and listen to her speak, oh my god, she has the sound. She has the right sound that I can almost picture Ellie. But there are mannerisms, there are little changes. She just doesn't come across to me as being Ellie. Um, but yeah, there are moments where all of a sudden she's dead on Ellie. Other moments, just she's a different person, a different character. Which, hey, it's a show. It's a live action version of a video game. It's not supposed to be a like perfect one-to-one. I don't think anyone would argue it should be, but it feels like they're missing things. They're getting some things wrong, and I don't know why. You think episode 6 was our best episode? Let's see. So 6 is going to the town and then going to the college. I guess. Yeah, that probably is her best. It's weird because the scene in that episode, there's a scene that if you watch the after show, they talk about it. There's a scene in there that is an argument between Ellie and Joel. And again, I'm trying to think of how to avoid spoilers as I say this. It is apparently the most famous scene from the game. It's funny to me because, or at least that's what the after show says. It's funny to me because as I was watching this, I can honestly say I did not remember that argument from the game at all. Apparently it is the part everyone loves the most, and it is not the part that I remember. When I think about the game, the parts that stood out to me most were like the scene with Sam and his brother. I am totally blanking on the name of the brother right now, but yeah, those two, I think that was the scene in the hotel. Again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but I'm sure Henry, thank you. Henry and Sam. That scene in the hotel, in the morning, like that is to me, that was a way more powerful moment than almost anywhere else in the game, and in the show. I thought that in the game, when they're saying goodbye to Tess, I think that is a really big moment. And honestly, I feel like the show screwed that one up. It's screwed that one up so much. I also just didn't like that they cast Anna Torv to play Tess. I don't think she was right for it, both in look and age, and also just how she played it. Because I think of all the characters that they changed Tess the most, and too much. Also, just that very weird decision on how the infected have the vines growing at the end of, well, they show it in episodes 1 and 2. They don't really show it again after that. But the vine thing, just, that was weird. That was so weird. I don't think that was the right choice. Spores were better. But hey, if you're paying the money to have Pedro Pascal on a set, you don't put a big face mask in front. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, you do. You just have to do it when he's a hitman and a bounty hunter instead of a father figure. That's not going to stop bothering me a little. Anyway, so yeah, I like the show. I'm enjoying the show, but I feel like the last couple of episodes have given me moments where I'm kind of bored. That's what really it comes down to. Episodes 7 and 8, I've just had like stalled moments in the storyline where I feel like I'm just kind of sitting there waiting for them to get to the next part. And And also because they have been so similar to the game, I also like it's not exactly a spoiler problem. It's more I know what's coming and I'm kind of just waiting for them to get there so I can see a good version of what I'm expecting, and then when I get to it, it's like, oh, I was hoping that they would do more with this. I was hoping they'd do something to liven this up, and then they don't. And sometimes in very good ways they kept it the same. In other times it's like, oh, well, yeah, I just kind of left it there. Let's see. For Austin, just as a heads up, there is a character in episode 8. Not the biggest role, but it is, I'll just say, David's friend. I think that's a suitable way to put it. David's friend, he'll be basically the last friend that you see of David's. And that is the guy who did the voice acting for Joel in the game. And if you listen, like, it's not hard to pick out the voice if you're listening for it. You'll notice it pretty quickly. It is definitely Joel's voice. He's not doing anything to try to hide the fact that it is the same voice. Let's see. You know, it occurs to me, the voice actress for Ellie in the game is supposed to be in here, but she's supposed to be supposedly playing Ellie's mom. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't remember there ever being a flashback for her. So, and obviously, like, Ellie lost her parents, so presumably there should be a flashback at some point. But yeah, I don't think they've had one, unless I missed it. Carson, am I crazy here, or have they not had a moment of what's her name? It's Ashley something. I'm pulling it up right now. Ashley Johnson, that's the name. Yeah, at some point Ashley Johnson is supposed to pop in, and I'm guessing it's got to be the final episode. Will it say one episode? Yep. Okay, so it will be the final episode. It actually says on IMDb. Season 1, episode 9. Look for the light. So yeah, we'll get the final voice actor to show up then. And yeah, technically, if you didn't already know, there's this whole thing about how oh, I should change views real quick. Oh, wow. So sorry, spoiler alert, I guess, but yeah, they're gonna show her like that. That's interesting. So that's obviously a clip from the show, or rather a still from the show. Yeah, she's playing Ellie's mom, which is cool. You know, that's smart. So hooray for that. Oh, wow. Okay, actually another clip. Oh, I had already switched away. I'm saying spoiler alert, but yeah, so this right here. So they'll show her, for whatever reason, walking through the woods. Yay, I guess. And then I guess they're going to show her having the baby. Man, they're going to have to fit so much into that final episode, because they still have to crawl through Salt Lake City, which I have a feeling is not going to get any time. And then they'll get picked up by the Fireflies, or well, meet the Fireflies. Again, I'm trying to think of what I can say without it being spoilers, and I'm assuming that that'll become the moment for the flashback. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I can see that works. It's just, man, they're gonna have to fit so much into there. because you know they're gonna have to have a longer like final scene. They'll have to do something a little bit longer with that last episode at like after the events of the game, if you know what I'm saying. I again. Austin, take it easy. Well, I'm still gonna avoid spoilers, and I'm taking off in a minute too. My voice is killing me. But yeah, so have a good night, man, and I will catch you maybe for game night or something. We'll see. If not, see you next week for Ramble. But yeah, anyway, so again, like, I'm digging the show. I like it, but I just think that their pacing has been off. They're emphasizing too many of the wrong moments and not giving us enough of the other moments. Also, just as a side thought, you said, Carson, you said episode 8 was definitely the most graphic gory that they've done so far. How so? I kind of feel... I mean, I guess maybe... But the graphic, gory side, even then, was sort of more implied to me. Because they showed... I mean, they showed a few bodies that they didn't really give you much of a look at. They... Did they? Oh no, wait, did they? No, they just... that was in the game. They only showed you... during the show, they just showed you, I think, the ear that had been left behind, which that felt like a real lame toned down version of what they were going for. Because in the show, I think it was like a whole arm that somebody was tossing into a bucket or something. And then let's see. It was Ellie biting him. They didn't show the ending scene. You know what I'm talking about. In the burning place. Did they have hanging corpses that Joel sees? I swear I only remember that being in the game. Because they didn't spend a lot of time showing Joel actually traveling. It seemed like he was just getting to the city, and coincidentally he shows up like just as she's popping out. But yeah, maybe I'm mistaken, because I feel like I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know. Even that felt toned down. He does not actually rip off the kneecap. He threatens to. There's a difference. And that is in the game too, but yeah. I mean, that, I would argue maybe that's among the more brutal things, but to be fair, end of episode 1. He beats a guy literally to death. Like, I think that was a more graphic moment than what he does while he's torturing the two guys. I don't know why I air quoted that, because it's definitely torture. But anyway, yeah, I don't think that was I don't know. It didn't feel like that was as much. It didn't feel that gory to me, what they did in episode 8. Trying to think what else was there. The thing is, the show has avoided gore and violence so much. It's hard to think of anything that has been worse. But at the same time, yeah, because the show's downplayed a lot of the violence. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on any other part that would have been more violent. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Duh, what am I thinking? The big fight at the end of Kansas City. There is no question. There's people getting bitten and chewed up. Like, that was... Okay, yeah. That I think is probably the goriest or bloodiest moment in that episode. In episode 8. But seriously, the fight in Kansas City, I think, is way bloodier, way gorier, and it includes actual infected, which by their nature also technically disgusting. So I kind of feel like I got a hold to that. I think the end of episode 5 is bloodier and gorier. It's a big fight scene, so it's easier to ignore, but pretty sure that just in terms of quantity of blood and quantity of gore, that one probably counts more. But yeah, otherwise, not a lot. They really did tone it down. And I'm not necessarily sure for the better. It does feel like table stakes aren't as high, which has kind of bothered me a little bit. I don't know why. I can't really explain it, but it feels like they're trying to hold back for no specific reason. It's not like they'll be able to put this on network TV later. Can you imagine bleeping like every other word from Ellie? That would be hilarious. Anyway. Also, dude, watch the spoilers. I'm kidding, of course. But yeah, anyway, so those notifications do not matter. All right, let's see. So this weekend, I should be playing some Fall Guys on probably Saturday, technically possible Sunday. My bad. But yeah, I should be playing some Fall Guys, squeezing in a few rounds of that. I'm actually pretty close. I'm 8 days worth of play away from finishing the big marathon event. So yay for that, I guess. Let's see. And then obviously Monday night, The Last of Us, the final run. After which I have no idea what I'll do, if it's just going to be back to playing Fall Guys all the time, or if I'll start squeezing something else in. I'll figure it out then. But yeah, so anyway, should be gaming this weekend. That's the plan. I may try to squeeze in both Saturday and Sunday with Fall Guys. We shall see. But yeah, anyway, with that, thank you to everyone for coming by, hanging out, being part of the conversation, chatting with me, and listening to me rant and ramble about all kinds of whatever the hell we talk about. If you'd like to support the show, there are links down below to Streamlabs, Cash App, and Patreon. They are definitely much appreciated. They help keep the show going, and they keep the lights on to some extent. And many thanks to those who already support. You guys are lifesavers. With that, I hope to see some of you back this weekend. And I should be here myself. It'll be really weird if rant about Ramble. It'd be really weird if I start streaming and I'm not here, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. But with that, I hope you all an excellent rest of the week, and I will talk to you in Discord. Have a good night, everybody.